It's December. Today's a good day for doing a little bit of work in the woods. Well, this is what's left of a big pile of brush I started chipping the other day. We made ourselves a nice pile here. I should have blown it right into the bucket of the M while I was working, but I was in a time crunch and didn't want to get both tractors out here. Today we've got a little more time, so we're going to try to chip up. There's a pile over there along the road. Got a fairly big pile here behind the tractor wheels, and another couple of smaller ones over there. I don't know if that's smaller or not. We've got quite a bit to chip. It would be faster to burn it, but I want to use some of the wood chips next spring. I'd like to use some for composting, some for mulching stuff. We haven't made a lot of wood chips since we got this wood chipper, so I wanted to get a good stockpile going here, and this seemed like a good place to do it. Over on the other fence line where I've been working and clearing, most of those brush piles I'm burning up, because if we were to chip all of this, it just wouldn't be time efficient, and we'd probably burn a lot of fuel. As it is, we've got the wood chipper on the 686, because it's our most fuel efficient tractor. It's also the worst one to start in the winter time, so I don't know, I guess it's a give and take kind of thing there, but we're gonna chip up what we've got here and start to make a nice wood chip pile, and then in the spring we can use it for all kinds of different things. There goes the neighbor. That was our next door neighbor, our local dairy farmer here. We've worked with him for years and years and helped them out when they needed it, and they help us out when we need it sometimes. Usually it's kind of borrowing tractors if somebody's stuck, but this is his time of year to haul out his manure pits, so he's been hauling manure all day back and forth on the road. I just realized I should probably clarify that. That made it sound like he was hauling the manure on the road. No, he's using the road to get the manure to a nearby field that he rents to spread it. So he's not putting the manure on the road. Maybe a little bit going around the corners, but that's it. Well, that's a bucket full, and actually it was good timing. The snoot just plugged up, which that is one of the bad things about this wood chipper. I will give it one criticism. It works really well. It's nice to have it tractor mounted because you don't have another engine to maintain. But that snoot does plug up once in a while. So if you can see, there's 4 bolts, 2 here, and then the same thing on the other side. And when that snoot plugs up, you got to take those bolts out and take the snoot off and clear it out by hand. And what I've learned to do at this point is once I've cleared it once, I only put 2 bolts back in. And I don't even put them in super tight because the thing stays on fairly well even on its own. You could probably put it on there loose, but I never wanted to take the chance of it getting blown off. So I just put a couple in because odds are good it's going to block up a couple more times today. And it's just that much faster and easier to take it off. I was even thinking about rigging up some kind of a system where instead of using bolts to use something, or I could weld up maybe a threaded rod with a handle on it or something so it's easy to remove without tools. Because it's the one thing that goes wrong here is some kind of little, you know, you get stringy stuff like this and that clogs up in there and makes a bird's nest, and then after that it's all downhill. So my only criticism, otherwise works fantastic. What we have here is an international incident because they're international. Yep. Maybe I should leave the jokes to the other YouTubers. Hey, and if all you farmall purists start quoting history at me, I'll find you. Well, we're getting up on the end of the day here, and I think it's time to call it quits. We got this pile all gone. There wasn't, that one I had started already, there wasn't much there. This one over here is gone. And there's one behind the tractors there. That was a smaller pile that's all chipped up now. That was 6 loads. 6 loads in the bucket of them there. We still got these 2 piles over here, but after I looked at them a little closer, there's a lot of bigger stuff in there that wouldn't be appropriate necessarily to put through that chipper. So I think those are probably going to light up and burn them right where they are. And then this fence line here will be pretty clear. Let me take a second here to kind of explain what we're really up to, what the bigger picture is, because I mean, it's obvious we're chipping wood. But, you know, why are we chipping wood? Why are they these brush piles? I've talked before about how I'd like to get fences fixed and livestock back out here. Our pasture, which used to be where we would put the dairy cattle in the summertime, has gotten really overgrown. We had horses for some years after we got rid of the cows, and that was fine. They kept it grazed down, but they were only 6 of them out here, and they weren't controlled in their grazing at all. They kind of were free to go wherever they wanted within the fence and eat what they liked the best. And horses are pickier eaters, so if there were brushy areas, they would sort of leave those, and that gave the brush an opportunity to keep creeping out. So we ended up with a lot of prickly ash, a whole lot of buckthorn, which is invasive and should be gotten rid of anyway, and a lot of scrub trees. So what I need to do, and I've been battling this for some years already out here with a chainsaw, I would come out and I'd clear a patch of brush, but I was working in evenings and weekends and didn't have the time to keep up with it, and a lot of times it just grew back again quickly. And without any animals out here to graze anything down, I was fighting all this off with just a chainsaw and a limited amount of time. And that just doesn't work. So part of our plan is to do a quick run around the fence lines here, get everything clear enough to put up that temporary fencing, and then I'd like to get some goats in here as soon as possible. I don't know how many yet. For those of you in Minnesota who sell goats, I may be an interested buying party. I'd be interested. That doesn't make sense, does it? Let me try that again. I might be an interested buyer. I might be interested in buying some goats. So, if you sell goats in Minnesota, keep me in mind for this spring, or maybe not spring, maybe midsummer, because I do need some time to get these fences actually up once it thaws. Let me give you a quick rundown of what we're doing here. The best way to describe this might be to point the camera down the fence line, and you can kind of see the fence posts all in a row. This is where our horse fence used to be, and actually there's evidence of another fence back further. You see that a lot on the farm where they had a fence and then it got a little brushy and overgrown, so they just moved it in, which didn't really control the problem. So I'm doing a clean sweep on the fence lines and taking out anything that is an undergrowth, underbrush. I'm leaving the bigger trees and just making a clear path so that we can get new fences up. I would like nothing more than to take a chainsaw into a big patch like this. That is mostly buckthorn. but it doesn't serve my mission here, so I'm going to leave it for now, and we're going to try to control that with animals later on. And if the animals can keep the cleared fence lines grazed, then I can focus my attention there. So it's really tempting. Like, the worker bee in me wants to get that saw and just dive into those patches, because then you feel like you're really making some progress, and some progress you can see. But I gotta refrain from that. Isn't that pretty? That's a big bur oak tree. We've got a few of those on the farm. Those things are, of course, we will be leaving those. Here's another example. You can kind of see, of course, this stuff grows back so fast. This was just this year. You get a lot of this regrowth. It's just infuriating. But if I get down here, you can see Dana and I cleared this out last fall. And this is where we need to run a fence line through. You can see the hole up there through the woods. That's where we'll put our new fence line through. Just to be clear, for those of you who are environmentalists and think that we're clear cutting things, that is not the case. I can tell you every species I'm taking out here, I care about the environment too. We're mostly removing buckthorn, prickly ash, some small box elder trees, and we have a lot of box elder trees. There'll be quite a few left in the pasture, so the ones we're removing are in a spot where we don't want them, but we're not eliminating the species entirely. But they grow like weeds here anyway. We have a lot of elm trees that have been subjected to Dutch elm disease, so a good number of those are dead already. Any dead elm trees I'm taking down as I go along, particularly along the fence lines, of course, because that's our point of focus. I will leave any bur oak trees because they're native to the area, and they're part of what would be the kind of prairie land that would have been a little more natural here. So the bur oaks stay. Cedar trees, we have a lot of eastern red cedar here. Those I'm selectively taking down. Bigger ones I'm leaving, smaller ones I'm going to take down. Ones that are just the right size I'm going to use for fence post, because those are free corner post material, and they'll make good 30-year posts. So we're very selectively using the resources here, and any big trees we're definitely leaving in the bulk areas of the pasture, because we can sustainably harvest those for firewood over time. So just so you're aware, and I'll probably restate that again, we're being pretty conscientious about the way that we're taking the wood out of this woodland area, and the way that we're going to convert this back to pasture. So, doing our best here. Now, as for the brush that I've chipped up, some of that brush is going to get some of those wood chips. They're all smaller chips, smaller growth that should decompose quickly. So a lot of it's going to get used for mulch in the gardens and around different things on the farm. We like to garden in the summertime, but controlling the weeds is always a time commitment, and so we're going to try to explore some ways to keep our weeding and garden maintenance to a little bit of more of a minimum in the summer to give us more time for other things. So some of those wood chips will get used for garden mulch, and some of them are going to be used for composting. And to me, it's just a way of, it's certainly more efficient to burn the piles, because to chip them, obviously I have to burn fuel in the tractors and spend time doing that. But by chipping them, it's a way of transferring some fertility from an area where we don't need it, because that brush will draw up nutrients from the ground and sequester a lot of those nutrients in that plant matter, that biomass. So if we can break that down somehow and use it in other places on the farm, that's a worthwhile effort. We're not going to chip everything, just a selective amount to be able to experiment with and play with. And we can concentrate some of that fertility from these wooded areas into other areas of the farm where we need it more. So that's kind of an experiment that I'm working on. I can talk about it in broad terms, but I don't quite have all the pieces put together how we're going to do that yet. So I've been reading some books and thinking about that. It's a project for later in the spring and into the summer months. So there you go. That's what we're doing. Clearing fences, trying to transfer fertility, use some of this brush for a productive purpose, burn some of it, and just make way for the next step forward. I don't know what is. Well, there's the product of the day's efforts. That's a pretty good pile of chips for the time that we put in. I'll tell you guys, I'm stiff and sore from yanking that stuff up out of the frozen ground and feeding it into the chipper. My hands are bruised, but it's been a good day. It's been a good day to be farming. So, thanks for watching, and until next time, we'll see ya.